£330 billion worth of state-backed business loans, £12 billion worth of coronavirus support in budget, £12 billion worth of extra support to businesses, unlimited billions of pounds worth of support in terms of job retention scheme. But how much of that will actually hit your business bank account? Let's dive right into this. But before we do, if you're here for the first time, please subscribe to our channel to keep yourself up to date with upcoming support measures and other accounting and tax steps. Whilst the businesses across the UK are in financial turmoil due to the coronavirus pandemic, the UK government has introduced some unprecedented support measures for businesses in these unprecedented times. So let's have a quick look on that. The first one on our list today is Business Interruption Loan Scheme. Also, we are calling it CBILS, which is Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme. So today we will discuss as to what exactly is the scheme, how can you benefit from the scheme, who can benefit from the scheme, when can you benefit from the scheme, what's the benefit of that scheme, and what is the value of the loan. So government has announced that they will make £330 billion pounds worth of state backed loans accessible to businesses. That, by the way, is equivalent to 15% of our GDP. By all means, it's one of the biggest commitment the government has given to support businesses who are struggling due to this horrible pandemic. So what exactly is this scheme? As I say, that each and every individual loan would be backed and guaranteed by the government up to 80%. All it means is that it would be a lot easier for the struggling businesses to get hold of the finance in this difficult time. So basically, 100% of the loan, 80% will be backed up by the government. You obviously would still need to take care of the rest of the 20% in terms of security and stuff. I still believe that there would be a sort of mechanism in terms of affordability test, but that we will talk in a minute. Oh yes, by the way, one more thing, the loan scheme will be administered by a bank called British Business Bank. I wouldn't be surprised if you have never heard of that business bank before, but apparently that bank is going to administer the whole scheme, and they would deliver the scheme by authorizing 40 lenders, and I'm pretty sure that they would include all the high street banks like HSBC, NatWest, Barclays, Lloyds, and others. How would you get access to CBILS? So HMRC has specifically instructed that please do not get in touch with British Business Bank, although they are going to administer the scheme. Instead, get in touch with your personal bank, that is business bank, which means that you need to get in touch with your relationships manager who is dealing with your bank account and speak to them about the business interruption loan scheme. Having said that, I'll be totally honest with you, I spoke to at least 3 senior relationships managers recently, and they did not have a clue as to how the loan would work. And as per the recent announcement of Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, they are going to release the details sometime early next week. So definitely keep an eye on that. For who? So this loan is available for all type of businesses, small, medium and large. As long as you are a trading business, you would be eligible to apply for business interruption loan. When we already talked about it, once your bank is briefed and updated by the government, stroke HMRC, stroke Treasury, they should be able to entertain the applications pretty much straight away, and then it would be a matter of normal loan application. The only difference would be that this time your application would pre-guaranteed by the government at least 80% of that. benefits, so basically when Rishi Sunak announced the loan scheme, first he said that the first 6 months would be interest free, but in the recent announcement he in fact went further and announced that the first 12 months would be interest free, which is obviously a huge benefit. Also, the second benefit is that 80% guarantee bit of the loan, which is provided by the government, there won't be any extra charge for that guarantee, which is again a huge plus. Value, again, in the first announcement, you could apply for up to £1 million, but now the limit has been increased and apparently businesses can apply for up to £5 million worth of loans. Now, I would say that we would definitely be discussing a lot of business support measures, but this business interruption loan, along with the job retention scheme, is already proving to be one of the most famous support measures so far. I'm having lots and lots of inquiries about that because obviously it would help your workflow or cash flow, and it would definitely massively help in staying you afloat in these tough times. Job retention scheme, undoubtedly one of the biggest and unprecedented support measure by the government, and we'll have a quick look as to what's the background of the scheme, who are eligible to apply for such grant, how the scheme would work, and when can you as business owner have access to the fund. So starting with the background, if you recall, prior to the recent announcement made by Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, there was a lot of pressure on him and his team to announce something to do with the job protection or retention. And he came up with this fantastic and unprecedented support measure where 80% of wages of those employees would be reimbursed to the businesses who would otherwise be made redundant due to this horrible pandemic. So who are eligible to apply for such grant? All businesses in the UK are eligible. Any business who would have laid their workers off due to the pandemic virus, they can apply for such grant. How would you do that? So basically at this point in time, there are only two pieces of instruction available from HMRC. The first one is that you need to designate those employees as furloughed employees and let them know about the change. And secondly, you need to upload the information of such employees to apparently a portal, HMRC portal, which by the way is not yet in existence. HMRC is working on that portal. Hopefully sometime early next week that would be available, and then you can upload the information of those employees to the portal. When? Now that is an interesting question. Obviously I've been receiving lots and lots of phone calls and emails from clients asking as to when can they have access to the funds. Interestingly, Rishi Sunak used the wording by the end of the April. Hopefully the system will be in place by the end of April. So we still have some time to get to that point, but I'm pretty sure that once it's in place, HMRC will make it public and we will get to know as to how and when can we get access to that grant. Statutory sick pay measure. Now in this measure, as a business, you can reclaim 2 weeks worth of statutory sick pay per eligible employee who has been unable to work due to coronavirus pandemic. Now the employee does not have to have coronavirus, but even if they have self-isolated themselves, still they are eligible, or you as a business are eligible to claim for that. So let's have a quick look on the ins and outs of this particular support measure. So we briefly talked about as to what exactly is that. Eligibility, all small and medium-sized enterprises are eligible for the support. as long as you employ less than 250 people by the end of February. Also, you are supposed to keep a log of employee absences. One important thing here is that you don't need to have a FIT note or a GP's note, which is usually required in SSP, but in this particular support measure, isolation note would suffice from NHS 111. In fact, for the first 7 days, self-certification would also suffice from the employee. So that was to do with the eligibility. In terms of repayment mechanism, no one seems to know as to how the repayment mechanism would work for this particular support measure. Frankly, it could only be one of the two ways. Either it would be cash grant and somehow a system would be developed where the money would end up into your business bank account, or secondly, it would work like R&D credit, where it would be offset against your existing and or previous accumulative PAYE and NI liabilities, and if there is any leftover remaining, then you may get that. But as I record this webinar, we don't know as to what exactly would be the payment mechanism of that, because HMRC and government are still working on that as I speak. Current status, now this is because it involves PAYE and NI, apparently the government and HMRC can simply not do the change by press of a button. They have to pass a legislation which they are working on as of now, and once the legislation is in place, then the HMRC would start entertaining passing on the funds to the businesses. But one interesting word to note in the HMRC guidance here is that it will take months to sort out and develop the mechanism. Now, if you recall in the job retention scheme, Rishi Sunak himself said in his announcement that it could take about by the end of April, which means it could take up to 6 weeks. In here, HMRC is suggesting it could take months. So definitely worth keeping an eye on it. Business rate holiday period. Undoubtedly, the most hard-hit sectors due to the COVID-19 pandemic are retail, hospitality and leisure. Government has announced some fantastic measure in order to help them stay afloat. So if you are in any of these retail sectors, for 2020-21, there is a full 12-month business rate holiday period for you. So let's have a quick look on those. Eligibility, all UK businesses are eligible as long as you are involved in these sectors, and they would cover shops, restaurants, cafes, bars, cinemas, theaters, live music venues, hotels, self-catering accommodations, and so on and so forth. So great news, no business rate for next year. The good news is that you don't need to do anything. It would automatically be applied to your next bill. If you already have been issued by your council the bill for next year, that is 2020-21, then it would be readjusted. By all means, you can get in touch with your council to get the revised bill. Cash grants. This is already proving to be one of the most popular government support measure for businesses. So let's have a quick look at that. If you are dealing in the most hard-hit sectors of retail, hospitality and leisure, then the government has announced slightly more generous scheme of cash grants for you. And it would be seen as to what exactly is your rateable value of the premises from which you are operating or trading from. If the rateable value is under £15,000, then there is a one-off cash grant of £10,000 available for you. If the rateable value of your property is between 15 grand and 51 grand, then there is a one-off cash grant of 25,000 available for you. If you are dealing in any other trade or business or industry or sector apart from these, then still there's a cash grant available for you. So you could pay little or no business rate, and say for example you're claiming SBRR, which is a small business rates relief, then there is a one-off cash grant of 10 grand available for you. Eligibility and how to claim that grant. So in terms of eligibility, the first type of hard hit sectors thing, the obvious thing is that you have to deal in one of these sectors and a business based in England. How to claim that grant, and this by the way goes for both of the cash grants. Again, you don't need to do anything. You would automatically receive a letter from your council informing you of the grant, but frankly there is no harm in giving a quick call to your council and ask about this particular cash grant, especially in these difficult and challenging times. VAT and income tax payment deferrals. Another cracker of a business support measure announced by the government, where you can defer your VAT payment by 3 months. Obviously, it can massively increase your cash flow problems for time being. So you can defer your VAT payments for 3 months due to this horrible pandemic thing. Secondly, income tax payment deferral, as the directors of limited companies or self-employed people, you must be aware that the second payment account is approaching shortly on 31st July. But government has announced that you can now defer that payment to 31st January of next year. Again, this would massively help your cash flows. Hope you have a basic overview of the support available to businesses affected due to coronavirus. If you have any further inquiry, please get in touch on 020 3333 3000. Or drop us a line on info@naailco.com. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.